It's really interesting how our team shapes up in game after game. Losing the games that we lost, the prior week, you start to think, what's going on? There's a real slide happening here. Where's our focus? And then we come back in a game like UIC and we really play well enough to win the game. And UIC is a very tough matchup for us because of their size, and they're a very good team. They've got at least 3, I think, top ranking players in our league. And so looking back, of course, after a game like UIC, you think, oh, if we could have just gotten the Oakland game or the Milwaukee game, but we sort of done that all year, and we lose some games that I don't feel like we should be losing, and then we step up and win a game that could have really gone the other way. And so, I haven't really been able to get a handle on. I think it's just about when we play well, and when we don't, we can be beaten by anybody in the league. So we just have to figure out ways to play well for long stretches of time, and we had put together a pretty nice run there, middle of the season. So hopefully we can put together a nice little run here in the tournament. So as far as the tournament is concerned, I think there's still several scenarios. We only have 1 game left, but many of the teams in the league have 2. UIC only has 1 game left. They play, I think, at Detroit. Is that right? Mm-hmm. So, just by the standings, you would say that that's a game UIC is going to get, and they'll end up with 10 wins. And then Youngstown has 2 games left. They play Wright State, which I think is going to be a real battle, and they play us. So they've got a pretty tough ending to their season. Hopefully, Wright State will wear them right out before we get to them.
Mm-hmm. And beat them.
Yeah, and beat them would be nice too.
Yeah.
And if that happens, then we find ourselves, and if we're able to beat them, we win 10 games in the league, which would be doubling our win total from last year, which we'd be very pleased with. And we would be tied for 3rd, and I think that we win the tiebreaker because we beat Wright State twice,
okay.
And neither one of us beat Green Bay, and I don't think UIC beat Wright State. Mm-hmm. No, so we would win that tiebreaker, so we could be as high as 3rd. If we don't win our last game, I think there's a lot of scenarios that can happen.
Yeah.
We could be 5th. We could be, depending on what Oakland does, because they've got 7 wins if they win out. They have Green Bay and Milwaukee left. Things that you might want to say unlikely scenarios, but I watched Valpo take Green Bay to the last minute of the game at Valpo, and now you've got a 1-9 game going on, and it goes right down to the wire. So it's really hard to predict at this point. What we're doing is we're going to, and we'll know more after the Wednesday, Thursday games when we don't play. And if Youngstown wins that game, then they'll already have 10 wins. And so then we could be in a 3-way. If we beat Youngstown, we could be in a 3-way tie for 3rd. And I think we win that tiebreaker as well in the 3-way tie. So,
Okay.
So anyway, all I know is that we need to win. That's what I know. We need to win in order to secure a home seed. That's what I think. We need to win in order to and not have to count on anybody else losing any other games. If we win, we can secure a home seed. I think that's right. Is there any way we can not have a home seed if we win?
No, at least not from what I've done.
Okay.
But
So.
Well, the way you talk about it, it's like, well, let's just win this game because it's
yeah.
too exhausting to figure out all these
Right.
scenarios.
And then whatever happens with the other games happens.
Yeah, it just happens. Yeah.
But we really need to try to get this win. And it was a battle last time we played Youngstown, went right down to the wire. So, but haven't they all? Haven't all of our games gone down to the wire? So yeah, we'll be focused and ready.
In the UIC game, let me go back. You're about 5-6 minutes to go, and you put Imani and you put Kirsten back in. 4 fouls each. You got
6
Haley
minutes.
on the floor. You got 4 fouls with her. I mean, are you thinking, why, we can't lose this game? You know, because you got everybody out, everybody out there, and you don't want to, you don't want to have them foul out, but it's like you almost don't have a choice to, except put them all back in the game.
Well, my thinking was, we had talked about at the 8-minute mark, when do we want to get Kirsten and Imani back in? Well, first I believe it was just Imani, because Kirsten was on the bench with 3 fouls. We put her back in, and we pulled Imani out, and she picked up her 4th, and then Kirsten picked up her 4th. So we had them both out.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, when do we want to go back with, these? First we had talked about when do we want to go back with Imani, and we sort of settled on the 6-minute mark. And then Haley picked up her 4th, and at that point, we talked about, do we pull her too? Just too many non-starters in the game at such a critical time felt to me uncomfortable. And scoring-wise, we just needed to have some starters out there. In my opinion, I needed to have 3 starters on the floor. 2 was the most I felt like we could pull out of there. So it really changed, when Imani and Kirsten got in foul trouble and Haley was in foul trouble. I couldn't get Des out. I couldn't get Corey out. I mean, it changes what I can do with them if I want to keep that leadership on the floor. So when we put them in, I said we're going to lose somebody here. And I thought to myself, what are the chances of us going the next 6 minutes without a foul being called? And the odds with 3 kids with 4 fouls and 2 kids without, what are the odds that it won't be on one of those 3?
Yeah.
So I felt like we were going to lose one along the way, and we had Olivia, ready to go, and she'd played quite a few minutes, and we had Kayla ready to go. She had played quite a few minutes, but with the amount of fouls being called, we could have lost them all pretty quickly.
Right,
and so, I mean, those are gambles when you make those types of decisions. You just hope that it's the right one. You hope that they play hard and smart and don't lose their aggressiveness, because sometimes they'll just not play on defense so they don't pick up another foul. So,
I mean, but are you thinking this? You don't want to lose, because then you really put yourself behind the 8 ball if you're going to getting a home game, and if you're thinking that far ahead at that point.
I wasn't thinking that far ahead at that point, but I went into this game thinking, we got to get this. We've got to get this win. So regardless of what's going on in the rest of the conference, regardless of, of course, we didn't know that Youngstown was getting beat by Detroit.
Right.
So, we just have to, we cannot take on any more than our own game situation. So we worry about us, and anything else is too overwhelming. So just, I don't know what's going to happen the next game in conference, but I know for us what we need to do,
I think one other time about Adesva scoring in the second half, and she did that again this game against UIC. What does it come to her? Does she look more for her shot, or what have you been able to see as to why she's had big second halves with the team?
I don't know what that is. I like it, and there have been at least 3 games that I can think of specifically that she has really turned it on in the second half. And then she's had games where she's playing obviously a lot more maturely and playing a lot better than she did a year ago. But there are times when I'll take her out in the first half, and I don't know. You'd have to ask her what goes on in her head during that time. But I've taken her out in the first half and maybe put Kayla in, and maybe before I get Des back in, I get Brooke in. And so Des ends up sitting for a good stretch of the first half. And I actually think when that happens, she comes out in the second half with a little bit of a chip on her shoulder, like, have you forgotten about me over here? And then she makes some really big plays. And she had some great moves and great finishes, and playing with confidence. And And there was a stretch in the game where we didn't have a lot of scorers on the floor, and she needed to score for us, and she chose to handle the point at that time.
Yeah,
like I mean, she didn't have to handle it because we had, I think, Kayla out there, but she chose to handle the point. So, yeah.
What has, I mean, besides obviously being on the floor a lot, what has she improved on, from year 1 to year 2 that has really impressed you?
Her biggest change is her mentality, and obviously it's hard to have confidence as a freshman. You're not getting a lot of playing time and that type of thing, but she, I think, is a lot more in tune with the team. I mean, I think as a freshman you're trying to find your place, and you're forming friendships and that kind of thing, and I think she has a much better comfort level with her teammates, and I think she's obviously got a lot more confidence, and I think that she surprised us early on, even as a freshman, because when she came out of high school, she sort of operated as a shooter. She was sort of a 3-point specialist, and then what we saw in our back cutting offense, and we talk about straight line drives, not trying to do too much with the ball. If you see a gap and can get all the way to the basket, go. We were impressed by her abilities to take the ball to the basket as well, and I think she's finding a more well-rounded game, and so those are the things I'm most impressed with: her mentality, her confidence level, and just expanding her game. She's improved. I mean, I looked at the stats. Last year she was 1 for 8 from the 3-point line for the whole season. 1 for 8, and played I don't even know.
Handful of minutes the whole year, yeah. Talk about, if you can, about, I mean, we've talked a lot about a lot of players, but, Kirsten has been a real kind of steady the whole season. Can you just talk about how well she's done, this year? Has she met your, expectations running the, running the offense on the floor and that?
Kirsten, we right from the start, obviously she played a lot of minutes as a freshman. She, Imani, Corey played a lot of minutes as freshmen, and in that group, Corey was a starter right away, or pretty early. I think she started 25 games her freshman year. But it was really hard to say of those three which one, if one of them would emerge, as a star or a leader. And what I've seen is that as a group, they're a lot stronger than they would be if one person was just, scoring 25 points a game and the other two kind of back, second fiddle. So with Kirsten, she's pressuring the ball, literally 3/4 of the court every single game. She is asked to, handle the ball a great majority of the time. Her turnovers are way down. She's seeing things better. She's a more mature player. She's finding her teammates. She's understanding what it is we want. She holds other players accountable. So from that standpoint, she's really, really grown into a good leader and a solid point guard for us. And what we've seen just recently is more rebounding. I mean, she's a very capable rebounder. She's got a lot of jump under her, and I think fatigue got to her a little bit in the stretch. Maybe when we were up in Green Bay, Milwaukee, Oakland. Not as much bounce in her step, but we're asking them to play a lot of minutes. But haven't I always asked kids to play a lot of minutes? So I think we've done better this year with that than in years past. So I think she's a all around player. She plays defense. She plays offense. Gets on the board. She's very aggressive. She's becoming more outspoken. She's becoming more positive. She tends to be one of those kids that doesn't settle for anything that's remotely less than perfect, and she gets very aggravated when things aren't going well, and I think she's sort of kind of put that in check a bit so that she can communicate better with her teammates. So I think she's grown in a lot of ways.
What are a couple keys against Youngstown State that you'll have to focus on Saturday?
Well, Youngstown has both an inside and an outside game. Again, they'll play a 4-out motion with one kid inside, and they'll set a lot of flare screens, and that flare screens really hurt us when we're trying to help under the post. But we've changed our strategy a bit since the last time we played them, and we've got to be able to get to shooters. I mean, they're a very good three-point shooting team. They had a very poor shooting night the other night against Detroit. I don't think they'll do that again. We'll see against Wright State how they bounce back, but got to be able to get to shooters. And then I would say on the offensive end of the floor, we've got to be efficient because when we take good care of the ball and we get looks at the basket, we're pretty successful. The other thing that really kind of turned for us in the UIC game was, we've had a lot of success from behind the three-point line especially during a stretch of this season. We hit 16 in 2 games and I think 17 in 1 game, three-pointers. And during that stretch, we would say drive it, and we would drive it and kick it, and we'd get a nice look at the basket. But against UIC, wasn't what we wanted at all. We wanted to drive it all the way to the basket. We showed them on film that that some of their problems stemmed from not being able to stop penetration of the basket. And in the beginning of the game, didn't we drive it and kick it and miss shots? And I know I took at least one time out, and then we started to. I know Amani went to the basket after that, and then I think with a lot of things with our team sees Amani do something, and then they follow, and then we all started driving it to the basket. And I think that is going to be a key. We've got to be able to put it together. We've got to be able to get to the basket. We've got to be able to shoot it, and I don't even know. We hit a couple with 3 threes last game, but our whole focus was on attacking the basket, and so that didn't really matter. Now, we may not be able to get to the basket as well against Youngstown, but that needs to be our focus, and then we need to hit shots when we do kick it back out. So it gives us much more open looks.